Welcome to the Progress Report, a program where we look at highlighting the investment climate here in Guyana. In this episode, we listen to Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, the Honorable Onich Walrond, as she speaks about the recently passed Hire Purchase Bill and how this will benefit the business sector. The Hire Purchase Bill, which the Minister in her presentation to the National Assembly said was long overdue, will provide the statutory framework needed to govern contracts between buyers and sellers under conditional sale agreements. These provisions are expected to provide coverage and security for both parties involved in these agreements.
It's something that's been very anticipated for the industry. It's really going to change how the industry deals with hire purchase agreements, conditional sales agreements, and to protect the seller and the buyer, to level that playing field. The seller, when, let's say, we're speaking about repossession, which is a big thing under the hire purchase agreement, which is a major ill that we're going to be curing. And so when the seller wants to repossess, let's say the 70% has been paid, the seller then has to give the hire notice, 21 days notice, and that they have been in default and they will repossess. What the buyer can sometimes do is to change their address or move the item to another place. So it's difficult for the buyer to locate the item. And so what the Act proposes to do is to the provision that's being made is that if the buyer wants to change the address or move the item from the address that he has disclosed that the item will be, he has to give notice. He has to inform the seller, and if he does not do so and does so surreptitiously, he will be liable for summary conviction and a fine of $200,000. This is one major initiative to get major companies coming in, because the hire purchase regime is one in which it allows a person and small businesses, because we should also realize that small and micro businesses rely heavily on hire purchase agreements because they don't have the capital to buy cash like equipment. If they're in agro processing, if they're in mining, they cannot afford those major equipment, and so they have to rely on hire purchase agreements. And so what this regime does is encourage more businesses to get involved. It puts in protections for the seller. And what it does is that the seller is able to sell more items because it's the avenue. If a person cannot afford a cash price, they wouldn't buy. And so you have now, as a seller, more increase in sales because you have this regime in place, this hire purchase regime in place, in which you can make more items available to small businesses. So we can see small businesses grow on both sides, on the hire side and the seller side. So it is a win-win for commerce.
In her presentation to the National Assembly, the Minister expressed her confidence that the hire purchase legislation will create the environment necessary for growth and investment in the provision of goods here in Guyana.
And I'm confident that it will significantly improve the commercial environment by providing sorely needed protection for both buyers and sellers under hire purchase arrangements.
This updated piece of legislation, which has already been enacted in several Caribbean territories, will allow potential investors to purchase capital equipment over a period of time. It allows, according to Investopedia.org, companies with inefficient working capital to deploy assets. Government has already indicated its commitment in ensuring that there is a strong legislative framework in place to ensure the enhanced growth, development and investment in the Guyanese economy. For DPI, I am Shaquan Gill.